All. This is Mubin Sayed, and this is our cafe. So I was cracking up. Um, what was the comment from Alquin? Alquin's comment was, "How many clicks do you need? Does Dr. Mubin run a software, airline software, to get 20 clicks to get the link?" So next time my links will be available fast. Let's very quickly look at a couple of things before we do our chit chat. Number one, this was very interesting for me. Are there these two rivals beating Pfizer and Moderna? Guess who? Number one, Novavax, and number two, AstraZeneca. So, Pfizer and Moderna have dominated the US market since they became the first to launch their vaccines. This was back in December of 2020. Today, Pfizer has fully vaccinated more than 120 million Americans, and Moderna has vaccinated more than 75 million. Both companies also have delivered millions of doses around the world. But two other companies actually have won a larger number of orders. Does this mean that these players are a step ahead of Pfizer and Moderna? So they're going to have a closer look, but look at this. AstraZeneca, Oxford. So this is drug manufacturers with the highest number of ordered COVID-19 vaccine doses. So 3009, I believe it must be um, in millions. So 3009, so 3.3 billion doses. And Novavax, 1.4 billion, I guess. And then Moderna is here, and where is Pfizer? Pfizer is here. So Novavax and AstraZeneca are actually winning in number of orders. The second thing that I really find it interesting, and I'm going to work on this one for FLCCC talk as well, and this is the long COVID symptoms may depend on the variant a person contracted. And I was suspecting that, and here is the study. So this study says that long COVID has different flavors based on various um, variants. So that's very interesting. So, according to the report, at least three quarters, 76% of patients reported at least one persistent symptoms. The most common symptom reported by the group of long COVID patients were shortness of breath, 37%, and chronic fatigue, 36%. These were followed by sleep problems, 16%, brain fog, 13%, and visual problems, 13%. And then they say, upon further evaluation of the long COVID symptoms, the researchers discovered a substantial change in the pattern of neurological and cognitive emotional problems reported by patients infecting during the period between March and December 2020. So, different variant. When the original SARS-CoV-2 was dominant compared to those reported by patients infected between January and April 2021, when Alpha was dominant. So this is just a very long sentence saying two variants had different type of problems. And they continue to go on. I'll do this discussion, but I thought this was really interesting. And over the weekend, I drew this little coffee table. Although KoolBeens, there should be an apostrophe here at the end of beans as a possessive for cafe, but I'll put it at some point. So now we have actually 736 subscribers here, now 795, and we have talks here. Okay, so what are we talking here today? Our fun place. Susan Pick says table 19. Is that a good thing, Susan? Table 19? Okay, so Critical Thought says just refreshed again on KoolBeens Cafe YouTube page and it came up. Still not up on Rumble page for me. Not yet. So I have to learn the OBS and how to handle these these comments and to show them. I am actually not able to find enough time to do that. Johnson says, I had it at least twice and got a third shot. Starfire says, AstraZeneca is what Eric Clapton had. Bambi's here. Hey, Bambi, how are you? Texas Mac 2 like Pfizer, but both needed boosters. Denise, I'm reading your comment about your husband. So Bambi says AstraZeneca was made with no profit, so cheaper. So the free Cobervax was just authorized in another country, John says. Igor says, hello, hello, back to you. KC says, number 12, a preteen. Yes. Hey, Barbara, how are you? Hey, Lotus, how's it going? Send me your pictures of Lotus. I actually had the picture of Lily, a cat of Anne. Let me see if I can find her. She was actually watching DrBeen. So give me 1 second, please. Don't mind. I'm going to find Lily. So if I bring in here, let me just quickly set it up. So check this out. This is Lily, Anne's cat, and Lily is watching DrBeen. So that is so cool. So, Anne, thank you for sharing Lily. Kelly says, good night. Kelly, good night. Laurie says, did you read about strict lockdown in China to get COVID back under control? Do we know their numbers? We have their numbers. I do not know if they are very accurate. We can look at that. So here are the numbers that they are posting. So, excuse me. So compared to what they were posting before or reporting before, they have gone up from, let's say, 49 per day, 50 per day to about 2,345 per day ish. And they are going downwards now. So I do not know how reliable this data is, but at least from their own standard, this is a huge peak. Kelly says, I have to exit before I turn into a pumpkin. Thank you, Dr. Bean. You're very welcome. Okay, so tell me this. On this channel, as we talk more about COVID and those things, what is one topic that we should talk about to continue to add to our health and towards betterment of us? Secondly, the art talk. Should we do the art on this Wednesday or Thursday? Thursday we will have, I believe, Paul as well, Paul Borg. Maybe on Thursday we can also do art discussion here. Not discussion, but art. Barbara says cats love watching Dr. Bean medical lectures. Thank you very much, all the cats. Myron says digestive enzymes will destroy the spike protein. I do not know what is the context. Normally, SARS-CoV-2 is not really destroyed by the digestive enzymes. That is why it can cause gastroenteritis. Actually, many of the coronaviruses are not destroyed by gastric enzymes because of the protection by the spike protein, and the result is they cause gastroenteritis. Old school says Thursday sounds like a great art day. Okay, cool. So here is what needs to be done for the art. Please have a pencil and a paper or papers and an eraser if you like, or some digital way of drawing. Mouse will not work very well. So either with the pencil, pen, and a piece of paper, or iPad and Apple Pencil, or other digital drawing things. And once again, I am not a great, I'm not a, number one, I'm not a good artist. Number two, I'm not a great art teacher. I've never taught art. So the point of this discussion, the art class, is to actually stress our minds, put them to an effort, including my own, that would actually make us sharp. So with this, so Meeple Art is here. What are your thoughts on the huge rise of COVID cases in UK? Oh man, Meeple Art, this reminded me that I had to talk about Australia's Novavax, and you had sent me the links. So I'll do it. Actually, let me write it down. I'll forget. 1 second. Australia Novavax. Okay, excellent. Okay, so what are your thoughts on the huge rise of COVID cases in UK? 1 in 19 currently have COVID versus US cases very, very low at only 7,498 whole country. It seems at odds. Have US done something UK didn't? US may not be counting. Let's see. Plus, US has already gotten such a huge number of cases. So if we go to United Kingdom, so yeah, there is another peak that is occurring, although it seems to be flattening out without going upwards further. So yes, how many cases? 86,717 in one day. They've gone up from 27,000. Okay, so that seemed to be inclining upwards, but we'll have to look at that data in context of the cases. Now, United States. Yes. So either we are not testing or we are all vaccinated and immunized, natural immunity and vaccine, and so we are done. Number of deaths are going down as well. So that's interesting. Maple art. Oh, I'm so sorry I was not sharing my screen. Sorry, I'll share my screen right now. Here is UK. Here is UK. And if you see here, these are the UK cases. There is another peak that is occurring, but this second peak is actually kind of flattening. And the number of deaths seem to be ticking upwards, as you can see here. Although US is now opening up as well. So maybe, so Meeple Art says, would love to try some art with you. Might help kick along my NFT ideas. Absolutely. So, would you like to join us on the art classes as an art teacher? We would love to learn art from, so calling all art teachers, please teach us. And this is the US. So, US, yeah, so either we are not counting or we are done because we do have a lot of BA2 now, but still there is no upward tick. Or maybe it would appear in the coming weeks. We'll see. And the number of deaths are actually gone down, and they are kind of on a horizontal slope as well. So maybe, Paul, if you are hearing, US versus UK might be an interesting discussion to have in context of BA2 and immunity and vaccine and naturally acquired immunity status and so on. Meanwhile, in America says, I would love to hear real life stories of people who have had long COVID and then gone through various treatments and start to feel better. If anyone wants to share or be interviewed, how inspiring. I think that would be great. I actually think that I have gotten this cough that occurs every 2-3 weeks later. And I think it happens because of my re-exposure, and then there is a long tail. It continues for a month and then it goes away. So maybe I also have a long COVID. So yes, it's a good idea. So folks are saying that they have posted pictures on Discord. So I would actually share those as well. Casey says, I shared. Let me see if I can find. Helen B says, I found you back as well. So let's see. Art. There are many art pictures here. So let me share some of them. So if I go to the bottom, these are various pictures. This looks like SARS-CoV-2. This is Casey, inspired by seen by some images. This looks like COVID to me, Casey. Skybeam. Nice. We need to buy this island as well, Skyfrog. This is a nice picture. Look at this, Robin. Scottish variant. You can hear it coming. That is so funny. Oh, here I am with Luffy. Thank you very much. The coolest bean. Gene Bean did it. So thank you. Luffy's sitting smug there that, hey, I don't really care. Well, I am all giggles. Very good. Nice. So thank you very much for. We would actually start reviewing the art on the art days. So Wednesday is the art day. Joy Fisher says, finally you're back. I've been waiting forever. Is that for me? Here I am. I saw my island. Skyfrog says, nice. When are we buying it, or you have already bought it? So Megamuzi says, I still acquire symptoms, mild, but I agree that they are when I am tired. Doctor needs more rest. Possibly. So I never have cough in the morning. I do get them near the evenings, which is when I am tired. So it may be that. Absolutely. So Megamuzi says, wouldn't the prevalence of asymptomatic cases skew data from the beginning? Yes, that would. And we have been discussing this, that the overall This was something that had the chances to get me in trouble because earlier this was not on message for mainstream healthcare systems. So, people who are infected is one group, correct? Then, people who are vaccinated are another group. Then, people who are asymptomatically exposed and recovered are another group. Then, there are people who actually do not respond to this virus. They they just don't care. Their body, their immune system, either from cross reactivity or whatever. So this is uh, sort of immune, but not because they had vaccine or the infection, but they probably had cross reaction or a recent coronavirus infection, which has caused their immune system to be up and running. So there is this one group. How many people in it? Don't know. Then there is this group that is asymptomatic and recovered, and they don't even know. Many of them, of course, they were asymptomatic. So what is this size? Don't know. And this is where the antibody tests can help. And then vaccinated, it looks smaller at this time because I used to make this earlier. Nowadays, vaccine group is bigger. And similarly, infected and recovered. Interestingly, almost all of these can then become can cause long COVID like symptoms in some people. Now, let's make sure that I didn't say long COVID, but I said long COVID like, because vaccines do not cause COVID, but they can cause COVID like symptoms or a subset of that. And similarly, here, COVID, of course, can, and asymptomatic and the infection. I do not know about this group. So I hope this makes sense. Mega. Yeah. Long COVID like. Or here is why. One of these weird auditors said that Dr. Mubin says that vaccine can cause long COVID. I have never said that. At least I have that much of the functioning brain cells that can differentiate between long COVID, and long COVID cannot happen from vaccines. Instead of the symptoms of vaccine could be. So, anyways, that was one of the accusations. They said that Dr. Mubin said long COVID can be because of vaccine. That is incorrect. And I responded back and I said, I didn't say that. Tell me where. And they said, okay, forget about that. How about you said this? And so they just kept doing how about. Meanwhile, in America says, so how are you feeling overall these days regarding post-COVID symptoms? Nothing else. So I am okay. So remember a couple of weeks ago, I said I think I got re-exposed because I had runny nose and lethargy and um, one day of that kind of symptoms. By the evening, I was fine. Now, since that, it's I think about 2 weeks. Since then, I get this occasional bursts of cough. It's not all the time. And secondly, sometimes I get lethargy. I become tired and my joints ache. And then I just become okay. And so I was actually thinking seriously to start the magic drug. So this is a good question. SS says, can someone catch COVID from someone suffering from long COVID? No. Long COVID, the idea So long COVID, just in a nutshell, there are so many pathologies and I have to work on them. And as you saw the studies, I showed that every variant adds a different twist on the long COVID. But so far, the buckets are number one, blood cell dysmorphia. That is, the shape of the blood cells is not correct. That causes the blood cells to not circulate correctly, not function correctly, and so have a problem. If this is the kind of an issue, then the problem can be reduced after 3-4 months when these blood cells are recycled. In the sickle cell patients, the RBC recycling occurs faster, so they might not actually have blood related long COVID. If the long COVID is because of blood, they might not have it more than a month. So that is one. And I have discussed that study in the past. Then the second one is the Dr. Bruce Patterson S1 hanging out in the monocytes. It is so funny that I actually talked about it, and that was another objection by the auditor. Dr. Mubin says that monocytes can have S1. So I don't say it, that is a study, and I mentioned that study. And they say, well, there cannot be monocytes that can have anything. Monocytes become macrophages. Monocyte, according to them, monocytes are not functional cells. And here, if I go to monocyte S1 spike protein, I think everybody has seen those discussions. Look at this one. This is Dr. Bruce Patterson, right? Persistence of SARS-CoV-2 S1 protein in CD16 plus monocytes in post-acute sequelae of COVID-19. So this is another. So to me, it seems like the auditors live in the prehistoric time, and they have no idea that the world has really changed as the COVID struck. So this is an older idea that monocytes themselves do not function and they give rise to macrophage and done. Here we are looking at some monocytes that are misbehaving, unless this study is wrong. Then we also saw the study where we talked about lymphatics of the brain, that is the fluids of the brain, the lymphatic system of the brain, not properly draining because of the congestion in this area, because of whatever the reason. Maybe that is the monocytes causing congestion around the blood vessels, maybe the inflammatory markers, maybe something else. But lymphatic channel slowdown is another reason for neurological symptoms. And I have done a video about it, that massages and trying to move the lymph in this area can be useful. Then, a few days ago, we talked about the long COVID because of olfactory nerve reduced function, which in turn then causes the brain areas connected to olfaction to not function properly, which includes memory, recall, personality, and emotional statuses. Then we have done the discussion of, let's say, mast cells becoming upset, and that is what is causing the problem. Now, this could be somebody already had the mast cell activation syndrome, or somebody had a baseline syndrome and COVID kind of triggered it. Same thing with the macrophage activation syndrome. macrophage activation syndrome. Olfactory nerve, lymphatics, mast cell, macrophages. There is uh, one more that keeps coming to my mind, and then I skipped. So, yes, EBV and other viruses and their activation. This is very important as well. Then, this is also very important. Excuse me. Congestion. So, I do not have this one, I do not have a study for. Congestion in the brain. This is Dr. Keith Brockovich. In the brain leading to pituitary, I do not know the spellings, compression, which then causes abnormal hormonal activities, including aldosterone imbalance, which would cause fluid imbalance, which can then cause postural tachycardia and those things. This can also cause abnormal functioning of the suprarenal gland and having Addison's like behaviors. This can also cause sympathetic and parasympathetic abnormalities. Then the parasympathetic dysfunction, which in turn then leads to the POTS, postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome, which also cause GIT abnormalities. This is also possibly because of microbiome. Yes, and I want to write it down here one more, and that is I should say anti-idiotypical antibodies, and I'll go to that in a second. So back here, microbiome, POTS, GIT issues, then burning sensation in arms, palms, toes, feet, legs. This is part of the parasympathetic dysfunction. Then abnormal sweating, and so the temperature feeling of the temperature changes, or for example heat intolerance and stuff like that. Then visual impairment, or not impairment but visual disturbances. In addition to this visual disturbance, how much have we written? So inflammatory molecules going in the brain can cause issues that can cause visual disturbance, etc. So I intentionally held on this one because there is somebody who's doing a research on this and they wanted to discuss it. So I don't want to spill the beans about their work. So inflammatory molecules, congestion in the brain, parasympathetic system, and the abnormalities there, which also supports his fluid volume and retention problem, visual disturbance in the brain, GIT abnormalities, burning sensations, sweating. Then here, anti-idiotypical antibodies, which would mean, so this is the, excuse me, this is the network theory. right? So network theory. And here we have anti-idiotypical antibodies that are actually kind of, they can bind with ACE2. These antibodies look like spike proteins, or they have not exactly a spike protein. They have epitopes like found, so not all of them found in spike protein. That means they can then work on the ACE2 and kind of cause signaling of the ACE2 and all the problems with the ACE2 that can occur. So that is another, this is, I believe, a very important one. Then one huge one that I missed, clotting, microclotting. Microclotting. Then, of course, the um, inner ear damage or infection leading to, and I had to write down here as well, balance, posture issues and balance issues. And this would go here as well. So inner ear damage and infection can, one, cause tinnitus, and two, it can cause balance issues. It can also cause nausea and vomiting, just like seasickness. And this nausea, vomiting, and balance issues can come from the visual disturbance as well. It can come from the parasympathetic disturbance as well. So this may be the visual disturbance, balance issues, nausea, vomiting. Those issues could be caused by many of the pathologies here. So these are some that I can remember. There are tons of now studies that show, but if I can close this. So SS, I hope that answers part of your question. John Snyder says CD31 interaction damaging blood endothelial cell. Yes. So vasculitis, absolutely. Where should I write vasculitis? One second. So clotting, microclotting, I think this would cover that, but I want to write it down here. Vasculitis, which in turn has many, many issues. And of course, the anosmia, which was olfaction here, anosmia, and all the results of that we discussed a few days ago. Let me save this because, so let's say long COVID possible issues. Maybe we can document this. Okay, what else? Adam says the list of issues is so long. So Adam, actually, these are not issues. These are the causes. So when these pathologies would occur, there would then be issues that are going to be all over the place. Yes, diabetes. Or so diabetes actually thought was, I actually did that study last week. So there are a couple of issues. One, diabetes could be here in this parasympathetic system. Then it can be because of the this one. This is going to give rise to autoimmune diseases, right? And this in itself can explain lots of issues, including diabetes and other autoimmune issues. Then diabetes can also be because of the where did that go? Pituitary issues, parasympathetic dysfunction. Where did that go? Congestion in the brain leading to this. This can also be leading to diabetes by incorrect regulations. Then, very, very important for diabetes is the stress. Stress, which would then give rise to increased norepinephrine, epinephrine, increased steroids, increased glucagon, which in turn if persistent, can cause diabetes and many other such issues. So stress is actually a component of the long COVID. Of course, the orator said that Dr. Bean couldn't offer CME on COVID to long haulers, as if doctors practitioners don't need such info. So, yeah, they said that I actually offer education that is, according to them, crap. They said it's not even, anyways. And the interesting thing is, their own panel of 6 doctors who reviewed my content did not understand the content and couldn't figure out these basic things, that monocyte, and they couldn't even Google them. Bromley says, my cat is loving the long haul drawing. Thank you very much. Now, in the long haul, there is one area which is still open. And the day this got proved, that will be a very interesting day. That is persistence of virus in relatively healthy individual. Why do I say relatively healthy? This is not yet proven that there is persistent virus. Viral debris has been seen. It has been that video that I did about the spike protein in the blood. That study actually says that the viral debris sits in the spike proteins. They sit in the lymph nodes for even up to 2 months. And similarly, we know that the debris can be found in GIT cells for up to 59 days after the ending of the symptoms. But the actual viable virus, the real virus, is not seen in healthy individuals. I mean, if somebody is, let's say, immunosuppressed, HIV or drugs, they may harbor the virus for years in them. We had this South Africa's case where that woman had the virus in her for 256 days or so. So, relatively healthy individual, would they have the persistent virus? If they do, that would really change a lot of understanding of the system. Texas says, auditors took immunology when I did and have taken no CME immunocyst. Actually, even those folks, very few folks are good with immunology in general. This is a weaker area in medical community. So John Snyder says, new case study on person who had long COVID and they gave Paxlovid and they got better. Another case where person got monoclonal and got better. And that could be one of the reason, debris, and the second reason could be the autoantibodies that are behaving like spike proteins and they got cleaned out. Maybe persistent virus. Skyfrog, how are you? I lost all C19 stress after Delta decline. New job stress. New job stress. Do you have a new job? So JLB says, "Hi, Dr. Bean. Lately, we've seen a lot of spike proteins problems inside and outside of cells. Could the spike generated by the vaccine enter a cell even if it could not reproduce?" So yes, we did that discussion. There is a theoretical possibility of spike entering a cell. So let me explain that. Let me. Okay, so spike entering a cell. Spike. Theory, not a observed fact. This was a Swedish study. They said if the spike is made in a cell, so let's say this is a spike and this is a cell, and important to give these cells nice little eyes. This cell should look at the spike protein and kind of say, whoa. So here's a spike protein. They said it is possible that the spike protein can float out of the cell in an exosome or a tiny bubble from a vesicle that just floats out. And now, as it is floating out and moving around, it can then merge like a lipid nanoparticle. It can then merge with another cell, and the spike can enter that cell. So, that is one of the theories. One. Second, a spike that is present out in the tissue. For example, let's say because of the virus or because of a vaccine is making spike and the inside a cell and the cell is broken down, spike came out. This spike can be eaten up by the immune cells. For example, macrophages, neutrophils, who would eat it up and then try to destroy it. So that is the other possibility. If he can hold this spike and eat it, that would be a nice cartoon. So, right? So this is the second possibility. Immune cells can eat spike and spike can get into them. Then, of course, spikes present in the tissue, for example, Novavax, these would have to go somewhere as well, but normally they're taken up by the immune system. Can they be entering other cells? In my opinion, no, but I do not have seen any literature yet. Okay, so meanwhile in America, did you start this discussion of long COVID? And this is why in some cases electrophoresis is working, in some cases immunosuppression is working, or modulation is working. In some cases these drugs are working or vaccines are working or infection is helping. In some cases anti-clottings are working and helping. So in some cases mast cell activation and the macrophage activation syndrome modulations, these are working. Anti-allergies are working. So because there is just so many kind of pathologies, there are so many possible solutions as well. JLB, did you start it? You had me going. I don't know if I forgot some. So meanwhile in America says, yes, I'm sorry. No, you don't have to be sorry. It is actually good. You you allowed me to compile it. So FLCCC, Dr. Pierre Corey, has been asking me to compile this list and send it to him. I actually did compile it in, let's see, let me show you. So on my little Substack, I have this long COVID and vaccine injuries, and I have the whole list of all the videos I've done so far in here. I have posted this on Patreon as well. So it's on Substack and Patreon, and I would continue to add more to it. These are all long COVID discussions. Sometimes I really love my own cartoons. This is the blood cells. This is the non-classical monocytes. Which one? This is low histamine diets. Dr. Tina Pierce talked about histamines. This was the back of the napkin. Mast cell activation. Fluvoxamine's role in helping brain fog and myalgia, depression. This is the lymphatics. So what may be the pathology? This is like 2020. Since then, the pathology has changed a lot or evolved a lot, but it still is relevant. And I had done this. This was the very first video in 2020 about long COVID. I've been on it since then. So here on the Substack, thank you, Carolyn. Roller Girl says, you have great cartoons. Thank you. This is also one of the objections by the auditors. Dr. Mubin makes eyes on the cells. Yeah, sure. Thank you. Cleaved Nemo is an issue as well. Got it. Skyfrog says, I would love to hear the AFib treatments. Let me actually, Skyfrog in the COVID context or just in general? Because on the DrBeen.com, I have a video about atrial fibrillation and possible managements. And I think you have access, but I can do it again. I can do with some more depth. That would make the auditors a little more crazy. Low dose naltrexone is similar to colchicine regarding immune system modulation. They all do different things. Um, Low dose does modulate. Mechanism is not very clear, but still we kind of understand what it does. Colchicine is a blocker for the T cell movement or chemotaxis. I think that colchicine has more, um, it's harder. I like LDN more, but again, please talk with the doctor. This is a very interesting question. Vincent says, can a person change blood type? Is COVID-2 deregulation blood type disrupting of the 4O2 molecules in each ARBC? No. So you cannot change the blood type. Normally, your blood RBCs are changed, not the type, but they are changed and the damaged RBC would be washed out or phased out. So Bromlia says, would that explain why lufumectin works on long COVID? Yes, and on so many of the pathologies. So Alicia says, have you heard of the Maraviroc being used for the treatment? Yes, Dr. Bruce Patterson says that it is amazing for tinnitus and brain fog. I have not used it directly, but yes, I've heard of that. Dr. Bruce Patterson uses Maraviroc. He actually has a patent on Maraviroc for long COVID. Margaret says, have you done a program about parathyroid tumors and damage with blood calcium levels? I have not. That's a good topic. So, 1 second. Okay, so Margaret, I took notes and I would work on it. So Texas says, so what is fighting COVID and long COVID about? Immunology. There's a so there is. I don't know if you caught this hint from Dr. Campbell when he came on to my show. Um, he said something like this, which was very interesting. Let me share my screen for a second. He said that one reason for long COVID to continue to be long COVID, and I'm paraphrasing, it's not exact words, is that let's say there is a cell, let's say this is a T cell or a B cell. What happened? This is Luffy. Somehow my this size increased for some reason. Oh well. So let's say this is a T cell and got exposed to the SARS-CoV-2 or the spike protein and developed, this is, let's say, SARS-CoV-2, and it was, T cell became activated and started releasing activation related molecules, cytokines, chemokines, and started the immune system. Let's say this is a T helper cell. Then this became a memory cell and went and started living in the bone marrow. Remember that we had done this discussion. Now I'm going to make a bone marrow. This is quite a rickets. Okay, so this is a stylized femur. So femur, right? So in there, the bone marrow, normally it is flat bones. But anyways, let's say it lives there. Now, because it lives there, it's just going to continue to become activated again and again and cause inflammation. The problem is, how do we kill it? How do we ask this thing to stop? If it was in the lymph node, or if it was in the blood circulation, or at the site of infection or vaccination, we could do things to kind of suppress it. But once it has gone and taken up residence in the bone marrow, it has become sort of a long lived cell. And now we have a problem. So, one possibility is to actually suppress the bone marrow and then let it bounce again, which is quite a drastic and dangerous solution. But that may be a solution to kill off such cells that have just become permanent memory cells unnecessarily and continue to cause relapses and sort of creating a chronic long COVID in patient forever. So JLB says, hi all and Dr. Bean. Lately we've seen a lot of spike protein problems inside and outside of cells. Could the spike generated by the vaccine enter a cell even if it could not reproduce? Yes, so I just described it that it is possible in theory. There are some cells that by choice eat the spike protein because that's their function. Mega says great femur. Yeah, this is a little all over the place femur. Critical thought says, how can someone get a patent for using an existing drug for a given disease? So that's a very good question. Let me explain what he did. So this was What was this? This was the Maraviroc for long COVID. Dr. Bruce Patterson patent. He actually tweeted that patent out. Hmm. I saw somewhere he actually had tweeted out, this is DuckDuckGo, it's not the best one, but there is a patent he has. You can actually read that patent for how he did it. That was actually fun. I didn't believe it, but he actually has the patent. Barbara says, time to sleep. Excellent. I think we are reaching at 8 o'clock as well, so we would stop soon too. Meeple Art says, are blood sugar changes after vaccine infection likely to be type 2 diabetes? Or if antibodies against pancreas produce, is this actually type 1 autoimmune that is happening? So I think what is happening is inflammation in the pancreas causing, okay, so multiple things. I need to share again. So starting from stress, diseases stress, mental stress, without disease, for example, socioeconomic stress, stress of being at home, stress of being told you must do this, you must get this mandate, that mandate, right? So there are many ways to become stressed nowadays. That can cause diabetes because of the, I mentioned before. That's one. Secondly, inflammatory molecules. These can find their way to the pancreas and cause inflammation there and cause cell death. So that's two. Then the autoimmune part, where the immune autoantibodies go and attack the B cells, beta cells, and then the beta cells are dead. And that is doing this. So here in this case, peripheral resistance, inflammatory markers, autoimmune disease, pancreas damage, pancreatic damage. And then stress can actually also increase glucagon, which is counter to the insulin, which would increase the blood sugar level in general. Level increased. So there can be multiple reasons, almost all kind of. Now the question is, it type 1 or 2? Type 1 is generally reserved for autoimmune, but by by birth genetics. This will be, if immune system attacks, it's kind of type 1, but we cannot call it type 1. We will still call it type 2, and then it might become insulin dependent if the whole system is destroyed. Correct. Cortisol increases. That also causes modulation. So with this, how about we stop now? So my mantra by Dr. Bean, it is tiny amount and 1,000 great videos. So that is one. Secondly, if you would like to support this work, there are links in the description. You can buy me a coffee and support it, or you can use PayPal, or you can become a patron. And the easiest, smallest thing you can do is like, subscribe, and share. Thank you very much, and I would see you tomorrow.